and I'd like to thank you for coming to today's New Forecast Live Utilizing the Square Principle webinar. The purpose of today's webinar, aside from forecasting with the Square Principle, is to have you consider our upcoming June 25th and June 26th Square Principle seminar, excuse me, here in Las Vegas at the Mirage Hotel. Excuse me. On that weekend, I'll be teaching the Square Principle to people just like you, people that are very serious about markets and really want to go places in their life with markets. The people that attend these seminars are quite serious, and they leave with something that's remarkable, because what I'm able to do and what you'll be able to do with the Square Principle, you won't be able to see anyone else on the internet replicating, except for us, of course. So with that in mind, I want to say a couple things about the webinar here. We'll keep it as brief as we can. I do want to take questions from you. If you're thinking about coming to the seminar on 26th, I'd like you to ask those questions. Our company is Page Trader. We're now the oldest company on the internet doing this type of forecasting work. We're now in our 23rd year of providing market forecasting. A lot of the other companies are gone because what they had wasn't deep enough, and people began to understand that. We've been here for 23 years, and we continue to improve our forecasts, and we continue to grow. So we're super happy to have you here today. Please be sure to read our trading disclaimer, which is at the bottom of each of our website pages. Trading is risky, you can lose money, and so on. And again, this is at the bottom of each of our website pages. So what would you do? Please.
You want to turn your screen on, please?
I'm so sorry. I'm new to this. No, thank you so much. I very much appreciate that. You didn't miss anything yet, so there you go. I was going to say, and thank you again, Jerry, what would you do tomorrow if you knew how to make market forecasts like the ones that you see on this chart? Let's just take yesterday, for example, over here on the right. Now, hundreds of people, and maybe some of you, were in our webinar yesterday, our product. And you know that we said on Friday, down here, Friday in the right-hand corner, April 1st, the daily close today above 45.03, and this is an hourly chart, and they did close above 45.03. They closed at 45.32, well above it. Will advance the S&P up to 45.77 to 80 into Monday, April 4th. So on Friday, they did close here. I think most of you know that the market did in fact run up and complete 45.77 to 45.80, and they did it on April 4th, completing the high of April 4th at 45.80. You certainly cannot do that right now with your present tools that you're using. And without the Square Principle, you'll be stuck having to guess at what the market is likely going to do under a given set of conditions. But with this principle, you can put together really amazing forecasts that you can begin to utilize and make the chances of success dramatically higher, just like the people who took these trades yesterday. Now, all of our forecasts utilize the Square Principle, and I'm going to be teaching the Square Principle to you if you're coming on June 25th and June 26th here in Las Vegas at the Mirage Hotel. I want to answer the question for you, and the question is, what if you suddenly had the ability to masterfully forecast the next move that the S&P or gold or crude oil was going to make? What if you knew that you knew? What if you really understood it deeply enough that you just knew that you could do it and you could come in on any day and find that set of conditions day in and day out that would allow you to make stunningly accurate forecasts? Would that help you? Would that make a difference to you? Would that embolden you to start trading again if you've stopped? Would that embolden you to start picking up trading again in larger size if you're currently trading. I can tell you this, the people that have been to the Square Principle seminar, to a man, have said, this is the most amazing tool I've ever used. And it really isn't a trading system, it's a principle by which the market moves. Most people would really just prefer, and I think it's fair to say, most of you may just prefer to have an indicator, and if it gives you the green light, you go long, and if it gives you the red light, you go short. But I think most of you know that those are very, very limited in their ability to do anything really well. Now, take a look at your S&P right now. We've struggled with this over, we've made now 6 total forecasts, 6 seminars, 6 webinars where we've made 6 forecasts for what the markets were going to do. 5 of those were perfect for distant price targets. One of them was slightly off, and I was forced to just put one together in real time with you here last week because the same thing that's just happening right now. They're just completing 45.15 on the S&P now. Earlier today, and thankfully we did message this out in our Messenger product. Let me see if I can find that here. Here's the Messenger window. You can at least see in the window here that at 11:41 today, and let's take a look at see where the market was, maybe on a 15-minute chart, so you can see at 11:41, and let's put on a 15. So here is 11:41. We gave out that the S&P was going to move down. Take a look at it again. Where the heck is it here? I was saying that a daily close today below 45.37, basically breaking 45.37, is the earliest indication for a decline into tomorrow down to 45.15 to 45.12. Ain't no two ways about it. We messaged that when the market was right about here. They rallied up to a resistant point, and then they've sold all the way off. And today's low is 45.15.25. That was just made as we started. And back to, this is a 15-minute chart. So just 15 minutes ago, they were here, and now they've just completed this. Now, this was the forecast we were going to give out, but I do want to say that this has happened to us a number of times because we make the forecasts early in the day. And I suggest for some of you who are considering coming to the Square Principle seminar, convinced by seeing our forecasts and maybe taking a trial, that you take a trial that includes next Tuesday's Square Principle webinar. So you can be in the room and get these forecasts when they're made. So you don't have to come here at the end of the day when the forecast is being completed, because it is really the market that determines these forecasts. We can't tell the market, hey, wait for a minute, we have to forecast what the market's telling us it's going to do. Now, one of the most interesting experiences that you'll have when you know how to do this is that you'll see so clearly what other people who are struggling with the market are missing. It's a very interesting experience to be able to know something, not really be telling them what you know, but to see when they're operating, how they're missing big chunks of very important information about the nature of how markets work. Now, one of the things about how the nature of how markets work has to do with time. For the market, time exists, but you can forecast things way out in time with the Square Principle, something that's going to happen much, much later. Like as an example, we believe that the market's going to be, by May of this year, it's going to be down at 44.96 to 86. Now, that's not that far from where we are. It's only 30 points or so away, something like that. But we know that those levels are likely going to be reached. I wonder if you have any idea of where the market will be, say, later this year, much later this year. I'll tell you in a little bit what we think the Square Principle is telling us about where the market is going to be. But as we've been talking, we did break through here. We got the real forecast, as you see, is 45.15 to 12. I honestly think they're going to be lower than that into tomorrow. But that's what the market's doing now, is it's running to its square. And when you come to the principle, I'm going to teach you, just like I've taught many others, exactly how to put the square principle to work. That's me there. This is a whole classroom of people from our last seminar who have learned the principle. Every person in this room is a skilled market technician. We don't accept new people. We don't do business with newbies. There's nothing wrong with being a newbie. But if you're going to come to the Square Principle seminar, you have to know something about the markets. We want you to have been through all the experiences that traders have been through, and you will much deeper appreciate what the Square Principle is doing for you. These people from all around the world that came because they're so impressed with the market forecasts that you'll be able to do once you understand the incredible Square Principle. So we've now made a low of 45.1450 against the 45.15 to 45.12 level. Now, all this may sound impossible to you, and it may have been impossible in the past, but it is no longer impossible. At one point, it was impossible to have electricity running through wires so that people could power items in their home or have an electric light. But some discovery was made that allowed that to happen, and it's no longer impossible to have those things. It's very much like that with the Square Principle. I was lucky enough, I never make any claims of being brilliant. I was lucky enough to have a mind that looked at things a little differently when I began in markets, and almost very, very, very early on, within a couple of months, I saw the Square Principle at work without calling it that, without really knowing anything about it. I just marveled at what I was seeing and thinking, that is really curious that the market does that. As a matter of fact, it really struck me that the market was almost like a living creature that had to do this certain thing, which is what I'm going to teach you. That certain thing includes going down today under the current set of conditions to 45.15 to 45.12. It's very interesting that it happens on every single time frame. And every trade you take today, tomorrow, and the next day, since you don't presently know the Square Principle, you don't know what that thing is that the market is going to show you, which is the Square Principle, the movement that the market makes to run to its square. And that's why we were able to say so much earlier today, and even at the beginning of the day, because this product, we came out with this much, much later in the day at 11:41, long before the market got anywhere down here. This is the 11:41 time period over on the right here, before they had the big run down. So I know you'll be impressed by I hope you're impressed by what you're seeing. And many of you have been here for the past 5 times to hear our other forecasts for future market movement based on the Square Principle. And you certainly are thinking about coming to the seminar. Certainly, if you're a market person and you see somebody say, this is where the market's going to be, and it runs right to that number hours after he says it, or even days or weeks after he says it, and says it's going to take that along, you're going to be interested, at the very least, in coming to the Square Principle. Literally, this has revolutionized my abilities, my interest, and my success in forecasting markets, and it will do the same for you. Now, you could, if you would like to, find market experts that will tell you that it's impossible to do what we're doing. And it's impossible for any number of reasons. It's impossible mathematically because markets are random, or it's impossible because it's news that drives the markets, and no one can know what the news is going to bring. No one can be a fortune teller. And strangely, at 11:41 today, when the markets were actually rallying, we forecast it was going to go down quite a bit to 45.15. And you know what? I still to this moment don't know what the news is that's making the market go down. So the news is not a part of how we utilize, or how you will utilize, the Square Principle. It literally is built into the markets themselves to make movements that are set up by the square principle. And once you know that principle, which will be 30 minutes into the session when you come to the Mirage on June 25th and June 26th, in the first 30 minutes of my training, I'll show you exactly what the square principle is, how it works, and why you are going to be able to do these kinds of things. Now, it's plainly obvious to anybody who follows us, and there are a lot of people who do, that our forecasts work out the vast majority of the times. We're almost never incorrect. Now, that's because we take our time and we make sure before we make a forecast publicly that we have worked it out, that we understand all the little bits and pieces. That's what we do to make sure that we're correct. And that's what I do before I go on live TV, like I do every couple of weeks with Ben Lichtenstein from the Ameritrade, and make live forecasts for 10,000 people watching his program. And pretty much all of those forecasts have worked out. Some of them have been very, very large forecasts for huge movements in crude oil. Like, as an example, crude trading at $50 and forecasting that it's going to be up at $105 and so on, utilizing the square principle. So it can't be questioned that this actually works anymore. We're not new. We've been here for 23 years. Our forecasts are all over the internet. We're on TV making forecasts. We make forecasts for people all day long, every day, hundreds of people around the world. It's no longer a question whether the square principle works. The real question is, are you ready for the square principle? Or are you ready to continue using cycles, bar counts, candlestick patterns, trend lines, overbought and oversold indicators, oscillators, momentum, moving averages, Bollinger Bands, MACD, ADX, RSI, stochastics, the whole body of indicators, astrology, tidal rhythms, Elliott wave, Gann, pitchforks, Fibonacci, sacred musical intervals. All those things exist, and some of them can be very fun to use. But I know already, without asking you, that they can't do what the square principle has shown you time and again that it can do. The square principle really is the one thing that will allow you to say with quite a bit of confidence that a very specific price movement is going to happen in the market, and that will allow you the opportunity to take advantage of that and execute real trades on that knowledge. The square principle has literally forecast tens of thousands of market moves, not just in the S&P, but gold, bonds, crude oil, the euro, the dollar, and the list goes on, including in stocks. So, and by the way, we just added to our stocks that we're forecasting in Twitter because of Elon Musk purchasing a big portion of the stock, or at 9.2%. We'll be forecasting in Twitter as well. You're welcome to come see some of those forecasts as we continue to make them. Now, up until now, it was a very privileged group, a small group of traders that knew about the square principle. And back in 1995, they learned it from me. After seeing me back, I was only 5 years into trading, 5 years into markets, 5 years into the study of what markets are all about. I demonstrated for them a number of forecasts that were much less sophisticated and accurate as the ones that you have seen and will continue to see from us. But they were so impressed with what they saw. And remember, this was 1995, when, that looked really impressive back then, that they were willing to pay, and did pay, $25,000 each for the beautiful principle, the square principle, so that they could begin using it for themselves. And I can tell you that up to even this day, a lot of years have gone by, the square principle is still their most cherished trading methodology, if you will. What those seasoned traders witness isn't nearly what you have seen us able to do and what you will be able to do with the square principle. But it was very impressive to them enough in 1995 for them to pay quite a bit more than what you're going to pay if you decide to come and learn the square principle. Now, fast forward to today, the markets are insanely higher than they used to be. Their volatility is 5 times what it used to be. And yet, the square principle is forecasting beautiful market moves day in and day out. Honestly, even better with the larger volatility, day in and day out across a wide variety of markets. Now, let's go over briefly what it is that you're going to be able to do with the square principle. Number one, you're going to be able to determine, just like we did at 11:41 today, actually even earlier, we actually only texted it out at that time to people on our messenger product, but we talked about it early this morning when the market opened. But having said that, in the second hour of today is when we gave it out. So when the market gave us the indication that this was what was going to happen, all of our indications from that point forward were basically on the sell side of the market. There might have been some buy that we put out for a bounce that we thought was going to be significant, but the real premise was, hey, the market is likely to go dramatically lower. And what the square principle will do for you is allow you to determine exactly the price that the market is going to run to, like we did, saying it's going to go to 45.15 to 45.12. And now we've been down, even while we've been talking, to 45.0775. And I told you, it's going to go lower than our minimum target of 45.15 to 45.12. And so far, it certainly has. The square principle is actually predictive by its nature. That means you will be forecasting future price moves, not just a level per se, but a move actually to that level. And there is a difference. You could draw on your charts all day long what you believe to be important levels, but at no point do you know with any certainty that the market's going to go to any one of those levels. But with the square principle, you actually do know, and you don't have a whole bunch of them. You have you notice we didn't say the market's going to go down first to 45.25, then it's going to go to 45.20, then it's going to go to 18, then it's going to go to 50. No, we said early this morning with the market up at 45.55, it's going to go down to 45.15 to 45.12. So the square principle is really finding a single price, even though we for volatility purposes, we said 15 to 12, it's basically a single price that the market's going to run to. And you'll be able to pinpoint that price when you know, and you can do that days, weeks, or even months in advance of a larger move beginning. Another very important point about the square principle is that it is 100% objective. It is not like anything like Elliott Wave or Gann, where there's a whole bunch of interpretation that has to go on, and each man is going to have his own interpretation of what the market's going to do. Man A says we're in a wave 3 of 3. Man B says, no, that's wave 5, and we're now correcting, into an ABC pattern. Everyone has some different subjective answer for what the market's doing. First of all, the square principle doesn't use any form of Elliott Wave or any form of anything you presently know. And I do want to assure you that if you come to the seminar on June 25th and 26th, what I teach you, you do not presently know. There's no way you will know this information before it is taught to you. That should be a good piece of news, because how many places have you gone where you're going to see the same old chart with the same silly indicators on it and the same moving averages, and the person's telling you roughly the same stuff you think you already know? The square principle is all new, brand new information. Another thing that the square principle allows you to do is know where turning points are. You know why? Because the market reverses on squares. Just like the S&P is reversing now, bouncing off this, that's exactly how markets act after they've reached their square. So the square principle also sort of inherent in it, it gives you the ability to know not only is the market going to run to this price, but it's also going to bounce off of that price pretty significantly, sometimes really seriously significantly. Either way, it gives you turning point forecasts that can be tied in with your work in understanding and executing in markets. Also, the square principle is literally tradable in real time. You don't, in many cases, you would have to look backwards to say, well, this was a wave 3. I sure wish I bought it there. The square gives you plenty of advantages to be a buyer at 15 to 12 for the bounce to such and so on, because there is a turning point. And I do want to assure you that the square principle has worked exactly the same for decades. How do I know that? Because I've been using it for 3.2 decades. I started in May of 1990, and from that point forward was using the earliest version of the square principle. One of the nice things about the principle is that all of the work has been done. There's no work that you're going to have to do to develop it any further. It's a complete body of work that has been completely resolved. All of the work has been done. All you have to do is know it, and you know it by simply coming to the seminar. Now, I want to say on behalf of us, you're certainly not going to find anybody else who can make these claims, or anybody else who's willing to correctly make public forecasts like we do in front of 10,000 people when we're on TV with Ben Lichtenstein over at Ameritrade, or when we're making forecasts to our own customers around the world about what exactly the market is going to do. Would you feel a lot better? Wouldn't you feel a lot better knowing that you have a skill set that allows you to know what a market's going to do, instead of having the sensation that you're kind of guessing every day at what it's likely going to do? There's very few people that can put that kind of skill set together, but with the square principle, it actually makes it tremendously less complicated to understand what the market's likely going to do. And listen, it really doesn't matter what kind of trading style you presently have. Now, you may be really long-term, you may be medium-term or very short-term, or the style that you're using or the tools that you're using, none of that really matters. Because once you begin using the square principle and see how far ahead of what you're presently using it is, whatever you're using that really isn't helping you is just going to fall away on its own, and it'll be replaced by the square principle. You don't have to stop using anything that you like, but you'll find that the square principle precedes virtually everything you're using in terms of knowing or telling you what the market is likely going to do. And so on the weekend of June 25th and 26th here in Las Vegas, behind the closed doors of a very private and beautiful conference room in a Mirage Hotel in Las Vegas, a select number of traders will be given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to learn the square principle and master price forecasting, square principle price forecasting for once and for all. You won't be learning it over the telephone or by a book you sit in your house with, but under my direct instructions. And you will leave with a book, a notebook that has hundreds, not hundreds, but dozens and dozens of these kinds of charts. But they show the secret of the square principle on there so that you can go home and begin utilizing it in markets that happen on the very next day after the seminar ends. Now listen, nothing is going to be held back. I'm going to teach you everything I know about the square principle, and it's quite a bit more than what I've shown you even here today. So now, I do want to point to one of the people that were in the room there with us. This seminar actually was back in 2016. This fellow right over here on the right, his name is Jerry. He came to learn the square principle. After learning it, he studied it and put everything else he had aside to begin to really make the square principle speak to him. And he was able to come back to us after he had learned it to say, hey, check this out. And he was so skilled at using it that when you come to take a trial, which you can do at any time by going to pagetrader.com and clicking simply on trial, it is $7, but you'll get a full week of that trial, watching what we do with markets, forecasting, just like these forecasts here. When he put it all together, he was able to demonstrate his use of the square principle so effectively that when you take a trial in the Williams Edge Plus room, it's him that's in there. He's working with us, we're working with him, and he's in that room giving you forecasts based on his use of the square principle. So I think that's a pretty good way to interrupt, or not to interrupt, but to introduce Jerry from our Square Principal Williams Edge Plus room, since he was an 8-year customer, literally 8 years here as a customer before he got the Square Principal. And once he did, he is now very skilled in forecasting. And as a matter of fact, this forecast here was also his forecast for today as well. So let's bring him on and see what he has to say. So Jerry, thanks so much for coming today. Great to have you here. We've got a group of people thinking about coming to the Square Principal seminar on June 25th and 26th at the Mirage Hotel. So thanks for coming in.
Sure. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
My first comment would be stop thinking.
All right. There
Stop
you go.
Thinking. All kidding aside, it's good to be here again and see some, past, present, and, subscribers and people that I know are genuinely interested, David. They've got to be genuinely interested to show up, yet again and listen to us talk about this amazing principle. So I assume, if you're here, you're genuinely interested in the principle, and you've got perhaps some lingering questions or what have you to make a decision. But all kidding aside, let's figure out what that is and get you over that hump to learn this amazing principle. So I mean, really, it is. David, we mentioned 2016, and it's certainly from 2016 to now, it has really been a journey, and for me, it's been a privilege to be able to utilize and exert my knowledge and abilities with the Square Principle. If anybody here listening has got that same, character makeup, then you have to be there to learn it. It really is an outstanding, amazing principle in the market. And David, if they're looking for something easy, like you said, where you're just watching a line and crossover, moving average, or do something, and that just does your thinking for you, so to speak, then this isn't for you. If you really want to be able to get up in the morning, analyze the market, look at it through the Square Principle, and then develop your forecast from that point on, then it is for you. And that's how I'm built. So if you're built that way, then figure out what you got to do to be there in June and learn it while David's has the remaining willingness to teach it. So it really is an amazing thing. And you've been gracious enough, David, to allow me, with my knowledge of the principle, to develop my own ideas and forecasts about markets. Crude oil was one that we shorted the market. We had resting sell order in crude at 105.25. So if any of you love crude, our traders here yesterday, we discussed we need to short crude at 105.25, and we're going to cover it at $101.24. Someone happens to be here asking for crude, so I thought I'd mention. Listen, that was the trade that we set up yesterday. Sell crude at 105.25, cover at 101.25.
We in June, Jerry, in crude?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. We are in the May contract, David.
Briefly, this is the crude oil trade. The swing high was 105.36.
Yep.
And go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, 105.36.
Hourly chart.
That was there in the overnight. We had to have a resting sell order. I said we can sell that, and we covered at 101.25 here late in the afternoon. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful setup. We've done a number of trades with crude here as of late, some very big ones. One, a short from 116, 117, all the way down to 101.55. Huge trade.
Yeah.
There's just no way that I would be comfortable with crude in its present environment, putting people into short trades. I mean, let's face it, short trades that have worked out incredibly well. And once again, all easy to see and easy to read using the Square Principle. There's no other way I would have known to have been comfortable to initiate that kind of a trade. Precisely, exactly where to put it on and precisely where to take it off. That kind of precision really is only known to me through the Square Principle. And in case people don't know, I'm 61 years old, and I've been at the market since the age of 26. It's virtually all I've ever done is be involved with the market. So it's nothing new to me to be involved with markets. at all, but the square principle is literally in all of that career and lifetime. It is the most amazing thing that I've ever learned and have been able to utilize day in and day out. So I can't impress people enough, David, that it really, if they're serious about understanding markets and being able to interact with them, and that may be just analyzing and understanding, that could be trading, that could be managing a longer term portfolio, day trading, whatever it is that an individual wants to do with the markets, their success can only be positively impacted and magnified to an extent that they can't even imagine by learning the principle. And if they want to stop throwing money away on losses or other garbage that is out there, then please, by all means, please consider the June 25th weekend seminar, and once and for all, really gain some insight and some understanding that will change how you see any market you look at. There you go, Dave. Those are my thoughts today.
No, very good. Well said. Thank you, Jerry. I do want to make a little comment that, the ability to put forecasts together gives you the courage of your convictions. You're no longer guessing. You've done a little work. I mean, people would say, well, how long does it take? How much time do I have to take to come up with a square forecast? Maybe a minute and a half, but most people are uncomfortable. They just want somebody to tell them what to do, but if somebody tells you what to do, like me, and it works out for you, then you're dependent on me. Wouldn't it, and isn't it time to learn to do this on your own? In this very webinar on March 22nd, one of the main forecasts we gave out was Tesla was trading at 988, and we said Tesla should advance to 1,050 or higher in the week of March 28th. And the week of March 28th, that's exactly what happened. The day of March 29th, right here, they were up at 1,114.77. So a beautiful call for the market to advance. Even earlier today, I told you that the square principle also informs you of actual market turning points. And you can now see that it's starting to very much look like a turning point in the S&P over here on the right, because the market did hit the target of 45.15 to 12, and then now is starting to turn up. We're already up at 45.24. So you're seeing forecasts that we're talking about right here, just the nature of the principle, how it works. I don't have to keep forecasting that the market's going to turn at a square principle. That's what it does. So once you learn that, you'll be able to put that to use in your own trading. Now, I do want to say a little bit more about the nature of the principle so you have a better, clearer idea and something that might excite you. If you've been listening so far, you're probably interested. If you've been here before to get forecasts, you're probably intrigued and maybe a little skeptical about what the square principle is all about. And of course, curious about how the square principle really works. Now, I'll reveal the full principle to you at the seminar on June 25th and June 26th. But for now, here's a little teaser for you to mull over. It might be a good idea to be sitting down. I think most of you are. Here it is. I hope you're ready. Every market move you've ever seen in the market, no matter what time frame it happens on, occurs for the exact same reason. So let's just go over that one more time. No matter what the time frame is, no matter what the market is, every move happens for the same reason. And that reason can be reduced to the square principle. Now, the market may go further than the square principle indicates. Maybe the square principle is calling for a 10-point move in crude and it goes 15 points. But the move itself and prompts you to execute at the moment that the market is beginning to run to its square. Now, in order to make sure that you can use the square principle the same way that you see us using it and that you get these kinds of results, first, I have to teach it to you. Second, you'll leave this seminar with a full square principle notebook that has all kinds of tips and tricks and all kinds of things in it that we talk about at the seminar that you'll take home. Third, you have unlimited interaction with me. I come in every weekend to speak to people who've learned the square principle, or sometimes even to teach the square principle here, because under some conditions, we will teach it at our offices in Las Vegas. But either way, I'm here on the weekend to continue people's education with the square principle. And you would say, well, can't I just learn it once and I know it? Yes, but you may have some questions. Everybody processes information a little differently. You may have a question about something, and if you contact me, you'll be speaking directly with me. I'm the one that developed it, and you'll be learning directly from me, whether at the seminar or after the seminar. There's really no exceptions to that. And then when you leave the seminar, you can then, under the Williams Edge Squares room, you can come in for 2 weeks and watch us make these forecasts to the public, show you how we're making them live in real markets, and then take your questions. So you will be able to see us actually using the square principle day in and day out. And if you want to continue doing that beyond the 2 weeks, there's a very, very nominal charge for doing that. You don't have to do that, but it really does help for a couple of weeks after you learn it to see us utilizing the principle, forecasting with it. And by the way, you don't have to be a genius, and you don't have to have special skills or be a savant to make the square principle work, but you do need to know the principle. Otherwise, you're guessing, and it really isn't very good to be guessing in the markets. I actually think people do better gambling at casinos than they do guessing about what markets are going to do. So the burden of proof has been on my shoulders for years. I've demonstrated through PageTrader and through our live forecasts that we certainly have something that no one else has. We certainly are offering you the ability to have that something so that you can do these kinds of forecasts and trades for your own private use. Now, I hope you'll agree that the square principle really is quite an accomplishment. If it can forecast markets the way that I have in the past, then that's pretty amazing. By the way, does anybody here in the room know where the S&P will be like later this year, like maybe in the third or fourth quarter? I wonder if you'll type in for me where the S&P is going to trade. Somebody, please tell me where the S&P is going to be. I'm waiting. I want to hear from you where the S&P is going to be, say, in the third or fourth quarter of this year. See, I don't see anybody typing anything in. And the reason I don't is because no one here knows the square principle. Now, would you like to know where the S&P is going to be later this year? I'll just wait to see if you say yes. If enough of you say yes, I'd be very happy to tell you. I'm waiting. I hope you'll be interested enough to say yes. Guy says yes. Bradley says yes. A few others here are saying yes. Scott, thank you. Nick, because I thought you were here to at least get a forecast. I did forecast the market was going to go down to 15 to 12. We did forecast it was going to bounce there because that's what the S&P does when it reaches these targets. The S&P is going to be trading at $4,720 to $4,740 by the third quarter of this year. And if you knew the square principle and you came to the seminar to learn that, you would no longer need me to tell you. All you have to do is show up at the seminar, and we're inviting you to show up, and you'll be very well taken care of, and you'll learn something remarkable. And it is remarkable because it actually works. It is remarkable because many of you have seen this is our 6th forecast that we've made here at these seminars for what future markets are going to do. You can hear the confidence in my voice about what the market's going to do under these conditions that we have right now. And when you learn the principle, you'll be able to go home and put these same kinds of forecasts and then execute on them the way that you should be, rather than hoping and wishing for something to happen. Now, I want to give you the price of the square principle seminar. I think most of you know, but I think it's fair to say that we've made the price reasonable so that a limited number of new and serious traders can experience the same unbelievable trading opportunities that our clients around the world have enjoyed and profited from in the last 15 years. It is a one-time $6,995 for the 2-day Square Principle seminar taught by me, David Williams. That price includes the full 2 days, of course, of Square Principle training here in Las Vegas at the Mirage Hotel. That's about 4 hours per day. About one of those hours is a beautiful lunch that we'll all be eating together, utilizing a super large 81-inch clear digital projection screen and sound system. You'll leave the seminar with a beautiful full leather Square Principle notebook containing dozens of Square Principle teaching examples, tips and tricks printed in color that you'll take home with you. You'll also get unlimited after the seminar online support directly with me to help you utilize the Square Principle and answer your questions like, how did you make that call? And how did you know the market was going to do that? And by the way, there are no ongoing fees or anything else that you will be asked to buy. Now, obviously, this offer may not be meant for everyone. If times are hard right now, if the cost is prohibitive, maybe it's not for you right now. And maybe you shouldn't be trading if things are tight right now. But cost is relative when you're speaking about the markets, isn't it? It's not nearly as costly as taking all of your future trades without the knowledge of the Square Principle, the knowledge of where markets are going to be later this year, or the fact that the market's going to go down to 45.15, or any of the other forecasts that we've made. That's for sure. And it's also not as expensive and frustrating as trying to figure the Square Principle out on your own. I know you have some questions. I do want to answer them for you. And I want you to feel like I do when I look at markets, which is quite confident that very specific things are going to happen. And that's a very different feeling than guessing at what the market's going to do. FT is here and he says, David, as per tomorrow's downside target on the ES, which has already been reached, do you expect to bounce off that level or continue selling with even lower targets? Well, we're in the middle of a seminar here and I haven't developed further work just at this moment, FT, for everything leading into tomorrow. But tomorrow is actually the on-time day for us to be down here. They were able to get here early. Early, not yet set up. Well, we do that. Thank you, Jeff. We do market that we've selected to give a forecast on. And if you want to see more than what this webinar, sit down and start planning anew. We've done that work already. And so when you come here, we have that work ready to give to you. I mean, it's just a matter of practicality. Let's see. Daniel's here and he says, hi, David. Well said, by the way. Is your forecast from last week for Amazon still in play? Yes, Daniel, they made an attempt at that number. They got very, very close to it. And I do want to say, last week when we've now made 6 forecasts, 5 of those, 6 of those, actually 7 if you include today's, but last week, one of the forecasts that we had planned on had completed, just like today's kind of almost did. Just as you guys were getting in, the market was moving down to complete the 45.15 to 45.12, which I showed you we gave out hours and hours ago today. And there's no way anybody knew that was going to happen without the knowledge of this principle. Last week, however, the forecast that we had made had already completed by the time this webinar happened. So I had to make a quick one with Amazon. We've made huge forecasts with Amazon on the way up. We trade, by the way, we forecast in Amazon, Apple, Twitter, NVIDIA, and I think one other stock. So it got close to that number. It has not completed it yet, but we'll still put something together with that. And we do have, now that we are working with Twitter, I will have, perhaps next time we have this, I'll have our first Twitter forecast for you as well. So I hope you can be around for that. Let's see if there's anything else here. Let's see, no other questions here. Thank you. Joe says, can you tell us as proof where the S&P will end up by tomorrow at the end of the trading day? That would be amazing if you can give up that forecast. Well, Joe, I give forecasts, the ones that the Square Principle allows me to give out. You're just sort of dictating the kind of forecasts that you would like us to give you. You're welcome to take a trial. I know who you are, Joe. I'm still welcoming you, in spite of your behavior with our company. I'm still welcoming you here, that you can take a trial and check out what we're doing. I encouraged you the first time you showed an interest in the Square Principle to come take a trial, which you had not done at the time. I encouraged you at that time to even take a subscription, because we didn't know you, and there were some things, as you know, that we had gone over, and you took all that in a very different way. But I do want to say that we still welcome you here to take a trial. If you're willing to do that, you go right ahead and do it. But with regard to forecasts, we come up with our own forecasts. We don't have you dictate to us, hey, say this or say that. It's enough if we forecast what the price is going to do. And the Square Principle, Joe, by the way, does allow you to forecast what the price won't close above or won't close below. So that question that you're asking, actually in the Square Principle, there's a tool for that. So there you go. So, and I'm not going to cover anything else with regard to that, Joe, here right now, regarding to your next statement there. You're welcome to call in, and we'll go from there. But I do want to thank everybody here for coming today to check it out. I make a forecast every week for what markets are going to do. I've made that for you here. I've made it 6 times in a row for you. And if you'll come next week, we'll do another one utilizing the Square Principle. There really is nowhere else you can go to get that kind of information. And I feel lucky to be able to have it, to be able to make my own 2 forecasts for others as we do at Page Trader. I want to thank all of you for coming. We'll be back on Tuesday of next week. Place your deposit, fully refundable, $1,000, and we'll book your seat for you, and we'll go from there. Thanks so much, everybody. Best wishes to you. Even if you can't come to the seminar, best wishes to you. See you next time. Bye-bye.